Hey, this is Warren Redlick. Quarter 3 delivery and production numbers for Tesla are coming today, tomorrow, the next day, or very soon. We're going to have a really much better handle on what's coming for Tesla for the year 2021, giving us a good sense of where we're going in 2022. So let's talk about Q3. Are you ready? Let's go. There are a lot of different projections about how many vehicles Tesla will deliver in Q3. I want to stress, I focus on production numbers. I think production and delivery numbers are pretty close to each other. They don't change very much. And if production is higher one quarter than delivery numbers, the next quarter delivery numbers might be higher than production numbers. So it's not a huge difference. But anyway, these are delivery numbers that people are projecting. The lowest number up here is 204,000 vehicles delivered in Q3. That seems absurdly low. Tesla delivered that in Q2. It's pretty clear production has increased. So that seems absurdly low. Wall Street ballpark estimates are around 221,000 vehicles. I don't think that's crazy. I think it's a little low, but it might be right. And some people are getting out of control, with Rob Maurer from Tesla Daily predicting 247,000 vehicles, and Umbisam and Giddy predicting 250,000 vehicles this quarter. I want to believe that they're right, but I think that's overly optimistic. But let's talk about what different numbers will mean for Tesla's total vehicle deliveries for Q3 and Q4 and for the year 2021, and what that might mean for revenue, profit, and Tesla share price. ElonBits.com for the shirt. So we start with this. This is the Tesla press release for Q1 production and deliveries, and you can see they produced 180,000 vehicles. They delivered 184,000 vehicles. The difference is just they had some vehicles from inventory in the previous quarter they hadn't sold yet. They sold those vehicles, or sold more of their inventory than expected, and they came up with a slightly higher number, but it was the ballpark of 180,000 produced in Q1. Now let's look at Q2. For Q2, you can see production reached 206,000 vehicles. That includes 2,300 Model S's that were produced in Q2. There had been no Model S or X production in Q1. So Model S production went up, and that's significant, and that's going to play a bigger role in the numbers I'm going to use coming out. But we went from 180,000 produced to 206,000 produced. That's a pretty big jump. Now let's look at how this might play out depending on how Q3 and Q4 are going to go. Simply here, I just put the numbers for production for Q1 and Q2 on the sheet, and I left Q3 and Q4 blank. And we can see that for the year so far, Tesla has produced 2,300 Model S's and X's, all Model S's. They produced 384,000 3s and Ys, and 386 or 387,000 vehicles total. Now let's fill in the yellow and the pink and see what that does for the year. My first version of this is conservative. It's the low estimate of what I think is going to happen. You see that Model 3 and Y production jumped from Q1 to Q2 by 24,000 vehicles. So I'm only giving a 16,000 vehicle production increase for Models 3 and Y to Q3. I think this is conservative. I'm giving Model S and X, it's all Model S's still. I'm giving that a small increase to 5,000 vehicles in Q3. And you see a total for Q3 of 225,000. I think 220,000 is too low. Just when you look at these numbers, what are the odds that their increase from Q2 to Q3 will be less than the increase from Q1 to Q2? I don't think it makes sense. So I think we're going to see at least 220 on 3 and Y, and we should see some increase on S as they've gotten better. Then Q4 is more of a flyer. We're taking a reach and see what happens. I think Q4, particularly with Model Y, will be really big because we're going to see Berlin and Texas start spitting out vehicles, and that will be a jump increase in production. But for starters, I went conservative here. I said, all right, S and X production goes up a bit more. They're really not significant in these calculations. 3 and Y only goes up 20,000. I think that's conservative. You get a total of 250,000 vehicles in Q4. You add it all up, you're at 860,000 vehicles for the year. I think that's about right. I think it's a little bit conservative. I think it's going to be a little bit higher than that. Big question, will they reach 900,000 vehicles in 2021? I think 1 million is now out of reach unless some blockbuster numbers happen. But let's see what happens going forward now if we look at a more optimistic projection for Q3 and Q4. So in this version, I increased Model S a bit more. Again, Model S and Model X are not that significant in total numbers for Tesla right now because Model 3 and Y is so much bigger. I gave Model 3 and Y a little bit more increase of 20,000, which is still less than the jump from Q1 to Q2. You get to 232,000 vehicles in Q3 total. In Q4, I was a little more optimistic. S and X reached 15,000 vehicles produced. The expectation is that S and X together will ultimately reach 25,000 a quarter, even 30,000 a quarter or more. So 15,000 is still a long way from fully ramped. 3 and Y, I gave 250,000, a 25,000 increase. That's giving a little bit for increases in Shanghai and Fremont, and a little bit for production from Texas and Berlin. That gets to 265,000 there. We see 884,000 vehicles total for the year 2021. Not bad, approaching 900,000 vehicles. This is a somewhat optimistic scenario. I actually think this is pretty reasonable for where we're going to head. Around 232,000 for this quarter, 265,000 for next quarter, 884,000 for the year. Seems about right. Now I'm going to go with somewhat more aggressive estimates. And here I've jumped 3 and Y to 230,000. Still don't think this is crazy. I kept S and X numbers the same, by the way. I still don't think this is crazy high. Q4, those numbers jump more because Berlin and Austin are online. And you see 237,500 vehicles for Q3, 285,000 vehicles for Q4, and we break 900,000 for the year. I didn't go further and project like 250,000 vehicles for Q3 and what that would do. I think that's overly optimistic. If you took those numbers and you bumped Q4 up to say 300,000, you'd still be in the low 900s. Maybe you'd approach 950. You wouldn't get to 1 million. I don't think it's a needle moving number. I hope that I'm wrong and we do see 250,000, but with all the supply chain issues, I think this is about as much as we can expect. And this still gets us over 900,000 vehicles for the year. That is an 80% increase in vehicle production compared to the previous year. That is a huge jump. I think what we're going to see for 2022 is an even bigger jump. That once Giga Texas and Giga Berlin start pumping out vehicles and Shanghai reaches its full stride, we're going to see 2 million vehicles in 2022. This is a signal. If Tesla hits the 900,000 number for the year, that's a pretty big sign that things are going really well. So I want to talk about how this translates to Tesla revenue, profit, and share price. All of my models lead to a revenue number around 50 billion for the year, which is a roughly 60% increase in revenue total for the company. That's a little negative when you think about the fact that in the optimistic scenario, Tesla produces 80% more vehicles. So revenue should probably go up closer to 80%. When I ran my numbers, maybe I got to $52 billion in revenue for the year on the high number. Good chance it's higher than that. The important thing to recognize is that as revenue goes up, the proportion of expenses that are sort of fixed expenses go down, and so profit actually increases more than revenue. So if we're looking at a 60 or 80% revenue increase, we're probably looking at a 100% profit increase. And that means Tesla's earnings are going to go up a lot. When Tesla's earnings go up a lot, Tesla's share price goes up a lot. And that's what I think we'll really be looking for. We're going to get the Q3 production and delivery numbers anytime now. Could be today, tomorrow, next few days. And then later in the month, roughly the 22nd, 23rd, I'm making up the number, could be the 27th, we're going to get actual numbers for revenue, profits, etc. And those numbers, I think, are going to knock it out of the park. And that's really going to push things up. In between, we're going to have the annual meeting. I don't think we're going to have the Q4 quarterly numbers for the annual meeting. I don't think that's the way it works. I could be wrong. And I expect that the annual meeting is going to be some kind of positive news. So right now, Tesla stock is around, last time I checked, $770 a share, starting to threaten $800 a share. I don't typically worry about short-term share price. I'm much more concerned about the company's actual value and what it means for the future. But if we see good numbers, we should expect Tesla's share price to go over $800. But Wall Street is Wall Street. Wall Street does whatever it does. It comes up with different ways of valuing things, and it may not happen. Really big to see what happens at that annual meeting, to see if there's any nuggets of information that suggest Tesla is doing better than we think. My gut is, because they're doing this virtual, because it's going to be from Austin. One of the theories is that the reason they're doing it from Austin is they're going to show off that the production line for Model Y is ready to go. If they announce we've started production on Model Y in Giga Texas already, that's a really big sign of good numbers for Q4. Those will be Q4 numbers, not Q3 numbers. Q4 starts October 1st, so we're at the beginning of Q4 now. So if Tesla starts delivering Model Ys, and maybe there's going to be an announcement. I have this theory that the Model Ys rolling out of Texas and Berlin will be much lighter. This isn't a theory. This is pretty obvious. The front and rear castings, the structural pack, limiting factor, and I agree that ultimately with the structural pack and all these other improvements, we're going to see a roughly 500-pound drop in vehicle weight. So the first vehicles coming out of Giga Texas, I predict, will be high-performance models. They're not going to be what you can't order them online right now. They may announce at the annual meeting you can now order Giga Texas Model Y, and it's going to be much more expensive, like a $60,000 or $70,000 base price for a much better vehicle. You know, higher performance, better range, all of that coming soon. If they make that kind of announcement at the annual meeting, I'm not saying they will, I'm just saying that's the type of thing that could really jump the share price. If they say, look, we're ready to roll, we're going to start pumping these vehicles out. If you want to order Berlin or Texas Model Ys, and maybe there's two options. Maybe there's a 2170 version and the structural pack version, and the 2170 version is 60,000 and the structural pack is 70,000. This is all speculation. But if we see that kind of development, we're going to see a big jump in share price. Although you can never tell because Wall Street has these bizarre reactions. But in terms of long-term value of the company, that's going to jump the average selling price of the vehicles for the next quarter and going into next year. Ultimately, Texas and Berlin will start producing in sufficient volume that they will sell lower-priced vehicles because their cost to make them is going to drop over time. Their initial cost to make them, the amortization of the factory will be high in the first few vehicles. Another reason for accounting reasons, they may have to charge more for them, but practically speaking, they're going to be very desirable vehicles and they will charge more for them and people will willingly pay it because they're going to be amazing. Looking forward to 2022, if we hit 2 million vehicles, that's a big jump in revenue. It's a big jump in profit. I think as we head towards the end of 2022 and we look at what's coming, at some point we get announcements maybe about the Battery Day vehicle. I have a feeling that's being delayed. We get to the end of 2022 and we see Cybertruck production start. I think that will actually happen. Maybe Semi starts getting produced somewhere. We're going to start to see a lot of these developments happen in 2022. There's a lot to see, but if things go well in 2022, I think we're looking at a share price end of 2022 approaching $2,500 a share. If people get it. If Wall Street gets it, if people get it. And a lot of that depends on how FSD development plays out. I've had a fair amount of experience now riding with Omar, driving FSD across the country. Very, very impressed. Still some hurdles to get over. I think they know what the big hurdles are that they need to get over, and those we will resolve by the end of this year. And then it's the March of Nines. Then it's like, okay, we've got single stack, one stack to rule them all. I think they're going to have to merge or some way integrate navigation with FSD beta better than it's integrated now. And those are the big hurdles. And then you get to just these random edge cases, you know, odd incidents that it has to learn to deal with. And I think those things are coming once they get to one stack to rule them all and they merge the nav and everything starts working better. Then it will learn more efficiently. And then Dojo comes online and that speeds the learning. So there's a lot of good news coming. So if we see sometime in late 2021 or 2022, early 2022, we start to see a real progress on FSD becoming much, much better. And it starts to look better than human in all situations. That's when I think we could really see a big. That's when you could really see a big jump in share price. So I'm very optimistic. I wanted to keep this video relatively short. I don't think I succeeded, but Tesla is the next Tesla. I'm going to be doing another video shortly when we get the delivery numbers, and then probably do another video after the annual meeting to see what we learned from that. And then later in the month, we should get the financials for the quarter, and that'll be another video. Video on Lucid Motors coming up. Otherwise, please check out my other videos. Thanks to the Vasa Law Firm in Sweden, all my Patreon supporters for helping this channel grow. Check out the t-shirts and other merch at elonbits.com. And thank you so much for watching.